times. Like what's the cause is not usually something that I know or even think I know very early on. Like I don't have to be like I think this is caused by this before I can say I think that OT would be an appropriate helpful intervention because whether or not a kid um I'm going to throw out a lot of terms that aren't necessarily the ways that I frame things, but they are the ways that schools frame things. Whether or not somebody was behaviorally refusing to write something or had a fine motor difficulty that was related to some specific thing, a lot of times my methodology, especially at the beginning, is going to be the same no matter what. And so when I begin actually seeing the child, what I do with them is the same because it involves a lot of trust and a lot of following their lead. And so I don't have to feel like I already know what it is that is going on for them before I can trust them and follow their lead and play. But then like later on down the line, I will start to get clues from observing them. I might notice that a foundational like physical skill is missing. I might notice that there's a sensory component that maybe nobody else would notice or maybe isn't known about. I might notice that there's a fear or an anxiety that's being disguised as refusal or another emotion that feels safer and less vulnerable, like anger or silliness or something like that. And so I kind of file away these clues in my head. I write them in my notes when at the end of every day, then I write the notes of what I did for that session with that kid. And so if I'm like, oh, today I observed that they seemed like they had difficulty coordinating both their hands to do different things at the same time, but I say it in OT jargon, but I'm explaining it here. But so like that would affect your ability to hold the paper with one hand while you're writing with the other hand if you can't tell your brain to do two different things with your two different hands at the same time. So then you might just try writing with the one hand because your brain has kind of forgotten about this hand right now. But then when you do that, it makes the paper scooch around. And so then you get frustrated. And if this happens every time you ever try, then you get super frustrated and you feel like you just can't do anything right. And obviously that's a very simplified example. It's not usually quite so single issue or so cut and dried. But that kind of those kind of clues that are kind of going in my head as I observe the things that they're doing are the clues that I take to try to make a guess about what I could do that would help.
And this is something I teach, what is it that you want to teach? Do you want them to write their story or be so hung up on the spelling that they can't get the story out? So to me, the final product is most important. I'm all about using dictation devices or other devices, word prompting, where you have word prediction, those sorts of tools. If my goal for a student is to have them have that final product. If you want them to have, I work with fifth graders, they have to have an essay with 5 paragraphs, and they were writing about opinion about should chocolate milk be in school. So we're working on that. If they're so hung up on, I have to get all of these 5 paragraphs perfect or else, the world is over and I'm never going to go to middle school. And no, I want them to have fun with it and start thinking about the actual content. The content is important. You can always go back and fix the spelling. Some students will struggle with that for a very long time. I have dyscalculia, math. I am not a math person. So, and that's okay. So I'm able to do math. I don't like it. It's hard for me. It's a struggle, but I persevere. And then, so for students who have dysgraphia, they may never be superior writers, but we want them to be able to have a product that they can feel proud of and that they can show, that can be published and put up on the wall and not feel fearful of others, of criticism, of what their parents are going to think, what the principal's going to think, what all these people are going to think. They want to feel proud of that.
don't let the kids' first exposure to a mark making object be when they get to kindergarten. But I mean, do not make them do a single thing that they did not pick it up for themselves and do it of their own love. Do not make them do a single mark making thing before kindergarten. And I mean, I'm only saying kindergarten because that's the point at which adults in society will begin making them do it. I'm not saying that because I actually think that 5 is the right age, because I actually think that 7 is the right age. But I don't have the Department of Education has not called me for my opinion on that yet, and until then I have to say kindergarten. But if and some kids don't have any choice but to go to a daycare or a preschool or a nursery or whatever where they are doing it sooner than that. And like, if you can talk to the school and be like, I would like to opt my kid out of having to do these worksheets or whatever, please do that. And if you can't do that, I understand where there are situations where you can't do that. And the best thing that you can do at home is to be no pressure about it at home. And honestly, I don't say a single thing about it. I don't say you're writing that letter backwards. I don't say that's not what an L looks like. I don't say, here, let me show you what an S is. None of it. Not a single thing about letters, about mark making, about coloring in the lines, about any of it at all whatsoever. I feel like I can't hit that point hard enough. And maybe if I was living in a society with more balance in it, then I would have a more nuanced position. But I'm not. I'm dealing with kids every day who are convinced that they are bad at school and bad at writing and will never be able to write. And writing is just not for them because somebody put a pencil in their hand when they were 3 and tried to make them write. And so I can't have a nuanced middle of the ground position when I'm fighting against quite a lot of information the other way saying, no, you need to be able to write, you need to be able to write, you need to be able to write. And if you could just do it sooner, that would help you in life. And it doesn't. You can this is also not the same as no one ever needs explicit instruction to learn how to write, because that's the opposite pitfall. Because reading and writing do not just dawn on people the way that language does. If you put a baby in a place where people speak to them, they will pick up language. If you put a baby in a place where people write around them, they will not just pick up writing and reading without ever being taught. A few kids with hyperlexic brains do, but other than that, they don't. So I'm not saying that, but I am saying you have to hold off until they're capable of the physical demands of the thing that you want them to do, because otherwise you took a body that was incapable of physical demands and made them believe that it was their fault. And like, if you started talking to a newborn from the second that they were born and like being mean to them for the fact that they couldn't walk yet, I feel like you would screw them up in a similar way. Like, I don't know that because we aren't running that experiment, thank goodness. But like, I feel like it would do the same thing to if months before they even knew what walking was or anything, if you were going like, why aren't you walking? You should be able to do this by now. Look, let me hold your feet and move them for you. Like, you would mess with their heads. And that's what we're doing to children with writing. And so everything that you do at home before kindergarten, and I would say still from kinder to second grade, at home at least, I can't control the adults at school. If it has anything to do with writing or mark making, everything that you do should be for delight and love.
Assistive technology, I mean, it can be anything. I mean, right now, students, I mean, you have to remember, we didn't have cell phones and iPads and all these things that we have now, and then the AI right now. Now we've got driverless cars like Waymo. It's amazing with the speech to text devices that they have. I couldn't even name all of them. At our school, there's different apps. I mean, there's just apps all over the place for assistive technology, but any kind of writing support with a tablet or iPad. A lot of it is speech to text. When I do testing, I do all the testing for students with disabilities at my school site, and when I oversee it, so I have to make sure that I review all their testing. They have to have for the writing, they have to have speech to text and then text to speech. So why would you have it both ways? One is so they can listen to the story and then they can record it after. Because I think writing takes so long for students especially, it's a combination. It's a weird, if you have dysgraphia, you can't process the words that you want to come out fast enough, and then you have, how to write it. And it's not necessarily an occupational therapy thing where there's a physical disability in your hand, but or a motor issue, but rather, how do I put together that word that I thought of 3 words ago? How do I spell that? And then you get hung up on these things, and that causes the behaviors. And that's another thing that I've researched, is how to reduce behaviors in K through 5 elementary for students who have been, they have this perception of themselves that they aren't good at writing, so I'm just not going to do it. And so how do we encourage them in a positive way?
I mean, the common like goals and stuff are just like all adult focused of the way that writing works. Like they'll be like, by next year they'll be able to write all the ABCs without with appropriate line orientation, letter formation, sizing, spacing, blah 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 blah. Or by next year they'll be able to write 2 sentences, or by next year they'll be able to write 1 paragraph, or whatever it is. And then you get to the next year, and if they can do it, you slap the next one on, and if they can't, then you keep the same one, and it's no more thought than that. I like to write goals that are rooted in the underlying thing. If I feel like I know an underlying thing, like if I see something about bilateral coordination, if I see something about core strength, things like that. I sometimes write goals. I do often have one of those default goals in there because that's what everybody expects to see. And then I will have like 2 others that I feel like are the actual way that I will get there. So my 2 others might be, by next year, they will explore a variety of occupationally meaningful core strengthening activities for improvement in handwriting and stability in their chair and stuff like that. And so that gives me the flexibility too, when I'm writing my notes and when I'm writing my progress notes, to say, we played The Floor is Lava for 30 minutes, and I modeled occupationally meaningful writing by writing down the list of all of the Sonic characters who fell in the lava as they were trying to get us. And what this did was, it related to goal number 2 because it improved core strengthening. It related to goal number 1 because it modeled occupationally meaningful writing. Then the following week, then I'm like, they came back to school and told me about how they did that with their friend and their brother. And so I know that it actually related to the occupationally meaningful piece of this. And so a big part of it for me, if a therapist was reading this or listening to this, would be like knowing how to defend what it is that you're doing. And then a big part of this for the adults is to realize that, like, for something to be occupationally meaningful to kids, it's not going to look like it does to adults.
Talk to your child. Getting to know your child, and teachers getting to know your students. Talk to your child. If they really don't like, what is it that they really don't like? Is it the actual physical part of it? Is it they don't have the vocabulary? And then support them with that. I always, when I'm writing IEPs, there's 3 levels of support: maximum, moderate, mild. Parents can do the same thing. If I have to, some students, I have to take a yellow highlighter, and I'm actually just writing it with that, my kinders and my preschoolers who are still learning language. I have to give them maximum support. And then you wean them off a little bit, and then give them moderate support. And then you wean them off, and it could take years. And that's okay. That's the biggest part is, are you okay with it? It's, your student, your child has a disability. No matter what, you want them to be successful. They've got to feel a little bit successful at least, or they're going to be devastated. You want them to be successful. Always be successful.